Dieting should not, and I repeat, should not, just mean that you get tiny and lose all of that muscle and size that you have grafted your arse off to build. The best that my lifting and strength has ever felt during a cut or diet phase. And I am building muscle and strength every single week. Now, by no means is this my first diet phase. In fact, it's closer to my fifth. So what am I doing different? Well, I'm going to break it down into 3 categories, with 2 subcategories within each of them. Nutrition, training, and what I'd like to call the needle movers. Now, the needle movers are the things that you don't really think about in the same importance as nutrition and training, but believe me, they can make the world of difference. Now, I'm sat here with my pot of crunchy nut cereal, frozen berries, dark chocolate, and milk. So, as I'm right here, let's start off with the first category, which is nutrition, and the first subcategory, which is your pre-workout, which in my opinion is the single most important meal of the day. And I would stand by that no matter what, whether you're dieting, bulking, in a more hybrid, running, performance focus, pre-workout is king. But I do think it has an even higher importance when you are dieting, which I'll be able to show you even more when I'm in the gym later on. See, obviously when you go to the gym, you want to get the absolute most out of your sessions to actually stimulate the muscle and eventually get muscle growth from it. However, to do that, you obviously want to have maximum fuel. And it's almost like when you go into the gym, you want to go in and squeeze everything out of the toothpaste tube, but that's going to require fuel. Why would you not go into that thing with the maximum, most amount of fuel that you can possibly have? That's why people saying that your post-workout meal is the most important meal of the day, I personally disagree with. You wouldn't go into a race and just not fill up your tank to the max before it if you could. You've got the opportunity to give yourself the best amount of fuel before your session. Why would you not do it? So for me right now, I'm running anywhere from about 120 to 150 grams of carbs before my session. This right here is about 135 grams of carbs. It is currently 7 minutes past 9 and I will be in the gym for about 5 past 10. Now, there's probably more optimal breakfasts and pre-workouts out there, but honestly, it's crunchy nut, it's strawberries, chocolate and milk. It just tastes unbelievable. And it still gives me plenty of the energy pre-workout benefits. So, let me eat this and I'll catch up with you in the gym. So, today is both the best and the worst day of the week, because it is leg day. But not only leg day, it is quad focus leg day, which means I'm just going to be wincing in pain for the next 48 hours after this. But that's how it should be done. So I've just spent about 10 minutes stretching off, doing some mobility, because the last thing we want is squeaky bones, especially as I've tried to essentially kill my legs today. So on to category number 2 of the video, which is all about training. And the first subsection is, honestly, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, don't train like a bitch. I was watching a podcast clip from Dorian Yates the other night, and if you didn't know who he was essentially the biggest bodybuilder of the 80s and 90s, and was very famous for the sheer size and muscle mass that he had on his body at that level of shredded as well. And he was saying in it that at his local gym now, even still, people come up to him and ask him to spot them, and where they would usually get 10 to 12 reps, he says that when he trains with them, he will get 25 to 30 reps. Not 2 or 3 extra reps, 10 to 15 extra reps. Now, I'm not Dorian Yates, but even myself, if I train with a client, they're going to get more out of the session, and if I train with my coach, I'm going to get more out of the session. But what I'm essentially saying is that you need to bridge the gap between what you get on your own and what you would get if you know you were with somebody. Because most people think that they're training to a certain level and they're quite close to failure. But what they're actually training at level wise is actually much further away from failure than what they actually might even know or want to admit. And earlier on I said that it was a misconception that you only build muscle when you're gaining or bulking. Because the simple matter is you're only training to about 70%, and that's been generous, because if we're being honest, it's probably closer to 50%. Your muscle needs stimulus for growth, and you've got to create that stimulus through creating tension, and you can create tension through effective hard strength training. So I'm going to go and do this set of trap bar deadlifts, and I'm going to basically go as close to failure as I possibly can. It is my third set, which is when I would really be looking to push to failure as much as possible. This is 107.5 kilograms. I'm going to be aiming for 10 reps, maybe 8 reps, somewhere in that vicinity, but by the end I will have nothing left in my toothpaste tube. So into voiceover mode and part 2 of our training, which is negatives and eccentrics. Now, first of all is me doing my Bulgarian split squats. Now, the main thing that I focus on here that not enough people do is actually slowing it down on that negative. So as I'm coming down, what do you naturally want to do in a split squat? You naturally just want to drop to the ground and then come back up, because the act of slowly going down requires more effort. It's fucking painful. It's hard. It is requiring essentially more work of your muscles, and the muscle fibers within the muscles are having to recruit more muscle fibers. AKA, if you imagine the muscle fibers in each muscle like staff, they're basically having to recruit more temporary staff as they're trying to hold the negative. So you are actually getting more out of the lift. Now, this is particularly beneficial and important on isolation movements like Bulgarian split squats. And then, as we go into the next one, leg extensions. Now, biggest issue with people that do leg extensions is you will see them bring the pad up, but then, as I'm going to show you just now by fast forwarding my clip, they just let the drop down. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what you actually want to be doing. So as you bring the pad up, I want you to think about actually taking 3 to 4 seconds on that way down. Again, your natural instinct is to just let the weight drop, because it's literally a pain in your leg to go slower, but you're having to resist against the urge and temptation to just let it drop, aka resistance training. So what I want you to do is, on your leg extensions, on your Bulgarian split squats, any movement which has a particular positive and negative, aka the positive is the explosive part. For example, on the leg extensions, the positive is the push, the part where you're pushing it up. For example, on a chest press, the positive is as you're pushing it forward. On a bicep curl, the positive is as you bring the barbell or bicep up, okay? So on the negative, on the part where you're going from the end of the explosive back to the beginning of the movement, please slow that down for like 3 to 4 seconds. Over the course of your session and the course of your training, you will get more out of your sessions, and over the weeks, over the months, this will all tally up and add up to you actually building more muscle and holding on to more muscle the deeper that you get into a cut. Okay, part 2 of nutrition is your protein. Now, 2026, so let's be honest, we've all heard about protein. Meat protein, building muscle, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Most people still don't fully understand the scale of how big an impact protein can have, especially if you are in a diet period, and especially if you're in a diet period where hunger is potentially going to be a little bit higher, just as it is for me right now. So for my dinner tonight, I am on British pork, okay? So this is a 500 gram packet, but I already know that when it's cooked, it'll be about 350 grams, all right? Because I've had it the last 3 nights. And also general meats, so minced chicken and things like pork, generally decrease in size by about 20 to 25% once they're cooked. But when you cook it, it will be less, meaning it will be less calories, meaning you can potentially have a little bit more with chicken, right? But right now, with my protein, I'm aiming to hit about 180 to 190 grams of protein per day, which is about 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, for a lot of people, you probably don't need that much. I would always recommend anywhere from about 1.6 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But because right now I am pushing quite aggressive with my deficit, obviously muscle, keeping it as much as possible is obviously of maximum importance, as it should be for everybody, but especially right now. So I'm going a little bit above and beyond that. Now, when it comes to protein, as I was just in there, I'll actually go into that as the first reason. Number 1 is how it actually protects your muscle. So it's muscle recovery. People think that you eat protein and it just builds your muscle. That's a very, very, very simple way of looking at it. The better way to look at it is when you work, okay, you essentially are putting stress on your muscle, and then I get protein in, and then it also essentially repairs that and then grows a tiny bit on top of it. So to an extent, yes, protein does build muscle, but it is much more beneficial just for general muscle recovery. Reason number 2 is the satiating factor. Now, in the oven here, actually, let me show you. Hopefully you can see that, but this is potatoes. So potatoes are, in my opinion, the most satiating carbohydrate. Now, satiating just means how filling it is. That's literally it. Now, protein in general is always going to be more satiating because it takes you longer to digest it. So if I have, this is 500 grams of pork. If I was to eat 500 grams of pork, it's going to keep me a lot fuller than eating 500 grams of bread or cheese or chocolate. So that's why I always aim to have it with every single meal, because obviously when you're dieting, your hunger is going to be a little bit higher. And that's why if you're in a calorie deficit and you're dieting, you have to keep on top of your protein. Not to make you feel bad that if you are trying to drop body fat and you're struggling with snacking and cravings and you're not hitting your protein consistently every single day, that is your number 1 biggest issue right now. So it takes you longer to digest, which means that stays in your system, so you keep fuller for longer. But But yeah, so right now I am a bit hungry, and I don't just mean right now in this moment, I mean in general over the past week or so, I've been getting a bit more hungry. But I can deal with it. And I know that as I get closer to the photo shoot, my calories might have to drop, my output, aka cardio and steps, might have to increase. And that's okay, because right now I'm dropping about 1 kilogram per week. And I would so much rather just get a diet and a fat loss phase over and done with. Just get it. I'd rather it take 8 weeks of hard graft rather than 6 months of sustainable imbalance. Fuck that. So, if you are in your calorie deficit and you're in a diet period and you want to, number one, maximise how much muscle you hold on to and build. Number two, you want to maximise how much body fat you drop. And number three, you also want to basically keep your hunger as low as it can be. This is what you want to be focusing on with your nutrition. So I'm going to go and scan this, and then I'm going to hit you up at the end of the night with the 2 needle movers that I spoke about at the start of the video. Yo, what's up? So, coming at you with the needle movers. Obviously filming this is a pretty separate part of the video, but they deserve their respect and their credits due. So there's actually 3 things, okay? So the first thing is going to be something that we all think about, we all know that we need to get, but we just don't get enough of it. Sleep. Most people, and I'm talking about clients that come to me and they say, I get X amount of sleep. But that's not really the truth, because usually what we're doing is we are going to bed, but we're taking our phones with us. And then the 11 o'clock in bed is actually 12 to half 12, because you're sitting on your phone on TikTok, Instagram for 45 minutes to an hour. So you're not really getting that. So many people are getting 6 to 7 hours sleep, potentially even less than that. The amount of reasons as to why a lack of sleep will completely fuck your physique is so much. Number one, muscle recovery. Obviously I spoke about it with the protein, with the intake, with the muscle recovery. But if you're not sleeping, your muscles will break down. You will not allow them the time to recover. You will not allow them the time to build, because your muscles build in the recovery stage. You don't just build a muscle when you're doing a movement in the gym. Your muscle builds in the recovery process. So if you're not recovering properly, I'll say goodbye to fucking building the muscle that you want. Number 2, how much it can screw with your hunger. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells your brain and body when it is time to eat. Leptin is the hormone which tells your brain and body when it is full. When you're lacking on sleep, leptin goes down, ghrelin goes up. So your body believes and will convince you that it is hungrier than it actually is, and it will say that it is much less full than what it actually should be. So across the board, please to God, get in your sleep. Number 2, volume veg. Now this is going more for the nutrition, but right now, as I said, I'm obviously in a great space with my diet and my cut. I'm having a massive amount of veg with my lunch and dinner. Your general raw veg, like your cucumbers, your peppers, carrots, and all that stuff, they barely track any calories. They barely take any calories. Lettuce especially, it's fucking barely anything. With your meals, why does this impact your ability to drop body fat and build muscle? Well, nutrition, cravings, going off track, not sticking to the diet can be because we're genuinely very hungry. And sometimes that is purely because we're not getting the absolute most out of the calories. I probably save about 200 to 300 calories per day just for veg, because I know that that 200 calories of veg will give me a hell of a lot more volume than 200 to 300 calories of anything else. And that is a big thing with veg, volume veg. It's about the fact that it can double or triple the size of your meal and only maybe add a small amount of calories. Start getting that in, okay? And number 3, and potentially the most important one, you need to have a plan of action for what you want to achieve. And what I mean by this is, when it comes to body recomp, which is what I'm obviously speaking about, you know, like dropping body fat, building muscle, holding on to muscle as you get into a diet, into a cut, you need to have an idea of why you're doing it, what the goal is, and how long you're doing it, when you are doing it till. Because so many people say, I want to get leaner, I want to drop body fat. Okay, but when are you going to do it till? I don't really know, I just want to drop body fat, get leaner, drop weight. That's not going to cut it. Right now, I know that I am in a cut until the very end of June. I'm doing a photo shoot, I believe the second last Saturday of June. So I already know exactly what my plan of action is. You can reverse engineer it. You can go, right, well, I know I've got this social plan there and that social plan there. Right, well, if I've got this, then I can work around it. For example, I know that I'm going to Marbella in about a week and a half, as I said earlier on in the video. So right now I'm pushing really aggressive and really hard with the deficit, purely because even though I know that I'll still be eating at a very good quality in Spain, it won't be quite what I'm at just now. So I'm getting ahead of the curve just now. I'm going, right, well, I'm going to get almost drop more body fat in the next week and a half than I normally would. So if I do put on, you know, half a kilo in Spain, it doesn't, you know, the overall balance average won't be affected. So you need to have a plan of action. Is it 8 weeks? Is it 12 weeks? Is it 16 weeks? I wouldn't recommend doing more than 16 weeks, okay? And if you are, then you need to have a pretty sizable diet break in there. Veg volume, your sleep, and having an actual timeline plan of action, those three things, when you combine it with what I've been speaking about in the rest of the video, that will ensure that you go into a diet period, you build muscle, you hold on to muscle, and you actually drop body fat. How can a timeline affect your body's ability to build muscle and drop body fat? Well, that comes down to your actual effort and your consistency. If you have got an exact timeline and you know exactly when you're doing it, why you're doing it, and what the goal exactly is, you are going to be more inclined to stay on track. You're going to be more inclined to do the things that I've mentioned in the rest of the video, which are going to help you achieve the goals. The 3 needle movers, plus your training and nutrition, and those 2 subcategories, that's all you need. Literally, that's all you need. Thank you very much for watching the video. I'm sitting here with my water and juice as I'm drinking a lot of water right now as I'm hungry, and I'm trying to keep my stomach distracted with liquids and fluids. Click the subscribe button if you have enjoyed the video, but I'm going to be bringing you a lot more around this whole process as I get further and deeper into my cut. Let's see how it goes. I shall see you in the next video.